as long as we have life, then it is good.
You know, when we talk about life, most people never understand the difference between surviving and living.
Correct.
So, and I think with that thing you told him, that was so imperative for him, because I think things like that saves lives.
Exactly. It puts things in perspective for sure.
So Amber, we're going to start the show. So I'm going to introduce myself to my podcast. Most people know me. I'm Dr. Paul, and this is Bridges Live. And I'd like to welcome Ms. Amber Hill, and then she'll tell you a little bit about herself. But we have what we want to do in Bridges Live, and I'd like to thank all my sponsors and listeners and downloaders, is that we like to inform, have an understanding, and hopefully that puts you to an action. And what I mean by action is, and I got a question about this a while ago, Amber. People say, what's an action? And I'm like, well, are you referring to the action I speak of? They're like, well, you always say put things into an action. And I'm like, yeah, you know, all movement, whether it be emotional, physical, spiritual, is a movement. Right. And movement is an action. And that's the laws of physics. Now, right. you can have intentional action, or you can have unintentional action. Whether you know it or not, it's going. It's moving.
Exactly.
It's doing something.
Yeah.
You know. So what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, like you said, I think everything. You know, you're saying action. I'll use the word energy, right?
Yeah.
Like everything is energy. Everything. And it is about the energy that we are emitting. We are always constantly emitting an energy. Now, what kind of energy? That sets the frequency. Mm-hmm. And that frequency is what can trigger manifestation. It can also trigger lack and everything else to come to us. So I agree that even when we don't think we're doing anything, we are giving off an energy, a frequency.
You know, Amber, and I thank you, Amber Hill, for coming on Bridges Live, but I teach energy and give the science behind energy and how it affects the body and how it affects the emotional science. And yet, you know, in these days, people are talking about energy like people talk about soda. Like, what's your favorite soda? I don't drink soda, but they're throwing it around, and I think I'm not sure if I'm glad the conversations are being talked about, but I think people are misunderstanding. Well, how do you feel about that?
I guess I never thought about it in that sense. For me, when I say energy, because I feel like we are all made up of energy, which is a presence.
Yes.
And so everything that has life has energy. Trees, grass, flowers, animals, humans, we all have energy. And that energy is what dictates us, right? It defines us. It helps things to move towards us, or it can repel stuff from us, depending. And the best way that I try to explain that to people is, have you ever been in a room full of people, everybody's having a great time, and then all of a sudden somebody comes in the room and you can just, you can feel it, and you're like, I'm not going anywhere near that person. Like, you can feel that. You can cut it with a knife. And that is the energy that we're giving off, you know. So I don't know what other people mean by energy, but that energy is just so palpable to me and tangible.
Yes.
That to me, it is everything. It is the connection. It is the thread that connects us to life for me.
So give people a little bit of background, what you do, and how you are helping the world just move better, because I think that's why I'm so excited to have you on the show, because all my guests, I think, are just such amazing people. I really do. And I just, because there's so many beautiful amazing individuals out here who I call the light workers of the world. And,
Me too.
And they're doing the light work in darkness. And not enough people hear light.
Right.
Not enough people even see light. Like the guy you were talking about today at work, throwing things around, and you gave him light, and he needed to see that in his dark presence.
Right. And I think that sometimes we're very unconscious about it, right? Because I'm going to keep it real. I'm a light worker. I'm a psychic. I have a lot going on for me. But there are times where it's like a snowball effect. I can get into a mindset about something that rubs me wrong, and I can just go there, right? But it's that consciousness, because I'm much more conscious and aware. I know when I'm going there. Then I can make the conscious decision to change that energy, change that frequency. Like we can change a radio.
Yes.
We have to start being more conscious and aware and tuned in to who we are. So back to your question. So you said, what do I do? And did you ask me how I came to do it, or I want to make sure I don't go off track?
You can go off track because there is no track. I don't have a railway station. I'm not a conductor. No, because I think when people hear podcasts, they're probably wondering, who am I listening to? Well, I know who Dr. Paul is, but who's Amber Hill?
Right. Well, it's so interesting. So, a little bit about me. I was born in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, but I was raised in Springfield, Massachusetts. My mother was a psychic. She did not call herself a psychic.
Wait a minute. You were born in Massachusetts?
I was.
Time out. Are you a Sox fan?
I am not.
Okay, good, because this conversation probably would have ended really fast, being a Yankee fan. I am just...
I'm a 49ers fan, just for the record.
Okay, keep going.
Okay. But yes, I came from Springfield, Massachusetts. I moved to Georgia in 2001. I made the decision to move here because where we lived in Amherst, Massachusetts, is a beautiful area. But me and my children were like the chocolate chips on the cookies. And I did not want my children to be the type of black children that did not know how to relate to their own people. They did not know how to socialize,
I trust me, and everybody knows how dark-skinned I am, but most of my kids are mixed, okay? But they have dark skin. So everybody relates to them as black, and yet they're like, but they used to say, well, don't forget about my mom, but the world doesn't see them that way.
Right.
So we're not talking about who you are. We're talking about how the world sees you. Correct. So,
but I didn't want my children to be those type of black children that were not comfortable being around their own people.
Right.
I wanted to bring them where we have historically black colleges. I wanted them to see black people being progressive and having their own businesses and set that culture standard, which is how I came to be here in Atlanta, Georgia.
And and I have a daughter that's down in Atlanta now, in Marietta actually. And when we talking about black-owned businesses, black culture, black pride, right? When we speak on that, so many other cultures look at us like, how dare you say that? But no one ever says that when we talk about black other cultural pride. Like the Jews could talk about their pride and their heritage, and no one says a word, and so on and so on. But when we talk about black pride and black culture, it's how do you segregate that self? It's funny how that happens, and I agree. So yeah.
So I came down here, and now let me go back a little bit more into my history. So at the age of 14, I defied my mom, and I went and hung out somewhere I had no business hanging out, and that caused a ripple effect of me being put out the house. Okay? So that was at the age of 14 years old. So I've been out on my own since I was 14 years old. By the time I was 16, I had 2 children. By the time I was 21, I had 3. Okay? I also dealt with a lot of sexual abuse in my life and rape. So a lot of that trauma was definitely inside of me, and trying to be a young, single, black mother raising children and not really having an outlet for all of that trauma and pain because you're too busy trying to make sure you're doing right by your children if you're doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my abilities, psychic abilities, I knew that I knew things. I had a lot of deja vu, a lot of how did I know that, but you just kind of chalk it up to the game and think it's kind of coincidence. Or you're just like, that was interesting, and you just don't know what to call it. And to be very honest, being young and not really knowing much, because, the internet wasn't always there.
I remember landline phones.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, I remember 8-tracks in the car.
Me too. You're telling on yourself, ooh.
Exactly. I remember all of that. So because of that, my ignorance, anytime I heard anyone speak about the word psychic, I automatically thought of someone who speaks to the dead, a medium. I did not know for many, many years. I did not know that there were other kinds of psychics besides people that just talk to the dead.
So before you move on, and I'll remember where you are, you want to explain to our listeners what a psychic is?
Okay. So a psychic is anyone who has the ability that allows them to tap into what's considered above average senses, such as sight, which is having visions, claircognizance, which is knowing, clear knowing things, not knowing how you know them, but you do. Clairvoyance is the visions. And then there's other ones like clairaudience. Clairaudience is clear hearing, when you hear things such as maybe you hear things outside of you or hear things that give you information. My clairaudience works with frequencies and sound, so that's why before when people speak to me, I hear things about them. Mm-hmm. And that's why also before I do readings on people, I'll usually have them say their name because it helps me to further tap into their energies. And then there's clairsentience. Clairsentience is about a clear smelling or feeling, such as, let's say that I am talking to someone and all of a sudden I start feeling like I'm having problems breathing in my chest. That might make me ask them, okay, do you have asthma or do you know someone who passed away from asthma, COPD, something of the chest. Mm-hmm. So clairsentience allows you to feel things, actually physically feel them, take on their ailments and stuff, which I have all of that. Plus I'm empathic, which allows me to sense, again, energy. I feel people's energy, and that energy tells me a lot about people. Okay? So all of these, that's what being psychic is, when you have these above average things. And some people like to say, well, what's the difference between being psychic and being intuitive? I would say psychic is like 2.0 on intuition. It's intuition 2.0. That's what we're going to call that. So that's what it is. Does everybody have intuition? I think everybody does. Does everybody listen?
No.
No. But it's definitely 2.0. There's just information that you can have as a psychic that you get, that you have no previous knowledge, you have no way of knowing. How would you know that,
So when people have asked me, and they say, Dr. Paul, how do I get better in frequency? And I say, well, first of all, there's a couple of things. I think you are blocking it. I think people block themselves energetically,
Absolutely.
right? So, and I think our brains has a lot to do with it because we're losing the connection scientifically between our hemispheres of our brain. So we're unable to have that higher frequency, what you call the earth frequency, align with us. And that's why I do the martial sciences and teach all the different, because that's the alignment of like the planets. It aligns us all with all things that goes on. So when did you realize you had this gift, or did you call it a gift, or did you realize you just had this? What did you say to yourself?
Mm-hmm. So because I know that my mom was psychic, and again, she didn't use those words, but she was very empathic, and she was claircognizant, so she would have a knowing. Like one day she called me, and she was frantic, and she was like, "Where's your brother at?" And she was at work, and I said, "Well, he's outside riding a bike." She had just bought him this new bike, and she was like, "I just had this bad feeling." She was like, "Go find him." And I said, "Okay." I went outside and found my brother, and he had just got hit by a car. So my mom had these feelings. So she told me from a very young age, we come from a line of gifted women. But she never told me who beyond her was gifted. So that's why I can only claim to be a second generation psychic, because she didn't name anybody before that. So I already had an idea that there was something going on. But again, I didn't think I was psychic until a couple of years ago, when someone was like, "Hey, explain to me." I was empathic because I literally had connected with someone's energy, and I literally was taking on their emotions and feelings, and I thought I was losing my mind. I was like, what is going on? Like, I was feeling this, like, very overwhelmingly in love with somebody else, and I was in a relationship, so I didn't really understand it. And then at the time, I was trying to talk to somebody else about it, who I was in a relationship with, and they just got mad at me. And I'm like, why are you mad at me? This is not me. I don't know why I feel this way. It was just very tortured type of love. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. And so that's when someone was like, you're empathic.
Did you find it, or do you find it hard to be in a relationship knowing that you are what you are, and the person that's in love with you or with you knows what you are? Do you find it difficult?
Well, at this point, I think it's difficult. It would probably be more difficult for them than it would be for me.
Yeah.
For the fact that they couldn't really get over. And they can't get away with much. So if you're not walking the straight and narrow, and if you don't mean what you say and say what you mean, then yeah, you probably wouldn't want to come over on this side of the globe. But for me, the only way, I'm single right now, and the only way that I would be in a relationship is, number one, if they believe in me.
Yes.
Like, I don't have time to convince you. Watch the video.
There was this show, and I don't watch much TV, but I just remember this particular show, or this part of the show, or it was the woman who, and I can't. That's why I didn't watch the show. She talked to the dead, and she was on TV. It was a TV show, and I know she's like a famous actress. Oh my God.
Sarah Jessica Parker is black hair.
Yes, black hair.
Sarah Jessica Parker. I think that's if that's not it.
Sarah Jessica Parker was married to. She was blonde. She was married to.
Right. I'm thinking the wrong one, but I'm gonna get it though.
But
I'm gonna get it.
But here's my point. Not to talk about the show. But she had woke up one night in this thing, and he was a writer or teacher or something. And he says, what's wrong? And she didn't want to tell him what she had been seeing. And he's like, well, just tell me. And she says, I can hear people talking to me. He goes, well, what are they saying? And she says, well, they're asking me to do something. And he's like, well, I guess you got to go do it.
Right.
And to me, that says so much about a husband or a man or a partner. Says, I'm not here to question you. I'm here to love you. I'm here to cherish you. And in what you say, I believe.
Exactly.
It has nothing to do with what I'm supposed to believe.
Right.
And I think,
and that's love.
Yeah, that's love. That's amazing.
And that was Jennifer Love Hewitt. Sorry.
Yeah.
And that show was The Ghost Whisperer.
Okay.
Because I watched it, because I remember. I watch any show that's like that. But you're right. So that is important to me. Like, number one, you have to believe in who I am.
Mm-hmm.
You have to believe in what I do. You have to understand that what I'm doing is bigger than myself.
Yes.
It's bigger than them. It's bigger than our relationship. And it comes first.
You know, how many of us do you believe? I mean, there's probably a lot that's walking around, and I think that's why I think this other show comes to mind called The Walking Dead. I think so many people are so lifeless. They're doing things they don't believe in, and people don't believe in them.
Yeah. I definitely think that there's a lot of what I will say unconscious people.
Mm.
And I was unconscious for a long time.
So who woke you up?
Okay, so I got married in 2015. And I got married in 2015. And by January of 2017, my marriage was over. And the marriage wasn't good. And after I wasn't in a good place, went through my own depression and feeling like a failure. And I started to ask myself questions. Like, why would I be in something or be with someone who did not love me the way I deserved? And these questions that I started to, which is, in other words, I did my work.
Yes.
Right? Because a lot of us don't do our work.
Self-work.
We just, right. And we put an H on our chest and we keep it moving. And when I did that, I looked at the fact of it brought me back to some things in my childhood. It brought me back to, the molestations and rapes I had experienced. And it made me understand that self-love and healing. And when I did that, because I asked myself this question, which it sounds a little twisted, but it was so powerful. And the question was, am I who I was always supposed to be? Or am I who I am because of situational decisions that I made along my way? And when I asked myself that question, I realized that I was not really who I was supposed to be. That I was here because of situational decisions that I made along the way had brought me this. So then it was like, well, who am I? And when it brought me all the way back to, I am a young, black, psychic woman who comes from a line of psychic people. And then I went and I kept feeling like my mom wanted to talk to me and my mother's crossed over. So I actually went and booked a reading with LaCara Foster. She is a black psychic medium that is here in Atlanta. She's also a pastor, just got her doctorate. So she's Dr. LaCara Foster. And she's actually doing an amazing thing because she's bridging the gap between the church and the psychic world.
Nice.
So that's powerful, beautiful work that she's doing. And I had a reading with her, and my mom came through, asked for forgiveness for some things that, of how she treated me. And my mother said, tell the truth. And I was so perplexed. I'm like, all the messages my mother could have came through and said, I didn't understand it. I was like, wait a minute, I think I'm an honest person. I believe I tell the truth. And my mother said, tell the truth. Stop using ambiguous words of I'm intuitive.
Right.
I'm spiritual. She said, tell the truth about who you are. And she said, when I embraced my gifts, they would go through the roof. 2 days later, I took the red pill. So 2 days later, I started having visions and started communicating with people who have crossed over.
And those of you people who don't understand what she means by the red pill, we're talking about the Matrix, people. So wake up. Wake up from the Matrix. Unplug.
Exactly. And it literally, and when I do my workshops where I help other psychics to use their abilities and tap in, that's what I tell them. The biggest hurdle is you talked about this a little while ago. The biggest hurdle is believing in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That is the key to everything. It is the key to unlocking your abilities. It's the belief. But we've been so indoctrinated with the belief system of religion, with what other people are going to say, and especially in the black culture.
So I want to ask you two questions. One, let's talk about how can people reach you and get a hold of you and collect your services.
Okay. Well, I can honestly tell you I'm on almost every type of social media there is. So the name of my business is B'Nspired Services LLC, and it's capital B, apostrophe, capital N, and then everything else lowercase, Inspired, B'Nspired Services LLC. That's the name on Facebook. That's the name on my YouTube channel where I have a show on Thursday mornings called Tea Talk Thursdays at 10 a.m.
Ooh, can I be on?
Yes, you'd like to be on my show? Sure. We'll work that out. We will work that out. So I'm also Friday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I do a group free psychic reading for my followers. My following has grown tremendously on Facebook. I'm on IG, same name, capital B, capital N, B'Nspired Services. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on everything with that name. My website is the letter B, the letter N, B'Nspiredlifecoaching.com. And they can go and book me for sessions. I have people that book me for life coaching. And then I have people that book me just for psychic readings. So I'm even on Groupon. I'm all over the place.
So now, when we talk about now, some of the black culture, do they shy away from it or do they tap into it?
I think they tap into it. And even people who, maybe publicly won't acknowledge that, and that's, publicly they may not acknowledge it, but a lot of black people are the ones coming to get readings.
Okay.
And other cultures as well, but, and church people too. So my thing is, I feel like, and even with doing I'm also on Meetup. I do psychic development workshops. I actually have a virtual 4-hour workshop coming up for psychic development on December 14th, and it's virtual. People can do it from their home. It's December 14th at 4 p.m., and we'll do that on Zoom, and that's for 4 hours, and I teach everybody what they need to know, just, psychic development 101, the basics of what every psychic should know, starting out the box, and go from there. And like I said, if they want to be mentored, that's a whole nother thing. They can get with that. But what I was going to say is I am much harder on light workers than anybody because we were not given this gift to keep it to ourselves.
No, we were meant to do the work.
We're meant to do the work. And we were giving it because the world is hurting. And there is a lot of darkness. And we were brought here to help heal the world. And so I push for us to break through because that's the point. You have to understand that this work is bigger than you, is bigger than me, is bigger than who don't like you, is bigger than what we're doing on Friday night. It's bigger than all of that. And when you understand that, then you'll put the work first. And I always say people are always trying to manage the world and then say, well, once I get the kids together, get my husband and my wife together, get my family together, get my job together, then I will take time to work on my spiritual self. And you're doing it backwards. We have to begin within. If you begin within and get your spirituality together, it is like the ecosystem. It will balance itself out. Things that don't need to be in your life will fall to the wayside. People that don't need to be in your life will fall to the wayside. And you will start being able to walk in your true purpose. of who you are and why you were born and what you're here for.
You know, as talking to the darkness, can you say, is it easy? I guess what I want to say, I want people to hear this correctly. To learn to be who you are meant to be takes work. And you've said that, Miss L.
Mm-hmm.
I am actually, I don't use the word afraid or fearful, but people don't understand what that work really means.
Mm-hmm.
And they won't do it.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because what version of life they are experiencing now
isn't working.
If they're not walking in the light, and I want to make sure everybody understands, what I don't do for the most part is I don't put religion in it, because this is spirituality, which is very, very different than religion.
Yes.
Okay? Spirituality for me meaning getting still, getting focused, getting centered, and letting truth come to you. That means leaning on your higher self, leaning on your spiritual guides, letting them guide you. Now, let me cross over to the other side for the people that are in church. You know how you say the Holy Ghost is a keeper? He is a keeper and a protector. Okay, walk back on this side now. Your higher self, that connection, being connected to the source.
Yes.
I am unequivocally connected to the source of energy, the source of love, the source of light. And what I do, I have no doubt that it comes from the light. So for what I can clarify some of the things when we were talking about before is that there's a movement to this. Life has movement. Living has movement, and that energy source that's connecting to you is moving. Right. When you swim with that light, you become more powerful, more centered, stronger, and you start to light up the other darknesses. Because that's what we need. Because darkness is the people who are afraid, scared, and who aren't moving. You know, they don't know they're consciously awake. Right. Yeah, or they don't know that they're unconscious. Yeah. But it's you only know what you know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. Exactly. And that's why I say a person who seeks will find. But there is more to life than just hanging out, finding someone to love you. And that's really interesting that we are so consumed with finding our quote-unquote twin flame. Oh, my goodness. We're so consumed. I mean, I have people all the time, well, do you do a twin flame? No, honey, I don't. I don't. You know, my thing is I'll do a reading on you, and if love comes up in it, we'll discuss it. But I don't just do a reading only about love, because the truth is, self-love is the best love, and you can't give what you don't have. And if you need someone else in your life for you to feel whole and to be happy, that says that you have work to do, and that can create a codependency relationship. Despite popular belief, two halves do not make a whole when it comes to a relationship. Miss Amber Hill, I'd like to say thank you for coming on Bridges Live with me, and we're going to keep this going, and we're going to put that attachment to the podcast, and we're going to make sure people hear it and listen to it and shout it out there, because my ultimate goal is to bring the light to the darkness, and you're one of those light workers that I'm so glad I was able to connect with, so thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it.